in parts of the coast, known as however you pronounce Homus, the fog is so dense that the water condenses on the plants, and they don't need any source of water from rain or from the soil. It was here that the botanists discovered that the plants take up the water through the leaves at night and exude it through the roots into the soil to store it for use the coming day. People didn't believe that could happen, even though it happens with our regular tomato that you have in your own garden. You can do this at home if you want to prove it to yourself. So the vegetation supported by the fog. But still, we're in the land of the home of the El Nino, where the understanding of El Nino first began. And quite a few years ago, I'm proud to say even more than I can remember, as they realized that it was the change in ocean temperature. When the ocean begins to warm, it kind of builds on itself and continues to get warmer than usual. If it begins to cool, that kind of builds on itself because it encourages more winds. The change of the direction of the wind with the temperature is what changes the precipitation so dramatically here. It's enough about every Christmas time that there's some precipitation even here about that season of the year. But sometimes that Christmas present, named El Nino, meaning in memory of the Christ child, sometimes that Christmas present, about 1 year out of 7, becomes so strong that instead of the 6/10 of an inch of rain, if I may use inches, you'll forgive me, it might become 60 inches of rain in the season. And that is no way to run a desert. The El Nino at the right of the chart is one of the strongest 3 since 1950. And you see there were a couple of others that came close. So we're learning some things about a strong El Nino. We have an Australian here who cares a great deal about the El Nino. That's the nation that's most affected, believe it or not. Everyone from this countryside here, the other side of the ocean, even has a greater economic effect than here. Nevertheless, the impact is terrific. When the El Nino is at strength, as already mentioned, about once every 7 years or so, that would be the average. We're always concerned about climate change. The climate changes. That is what climate does. Climate changes. It has always changed. It will always change. The question, probably the leading climatologist in the earth from 1966, Dr. David M. Gates. The question in 1966 was, how much? How fast? How come? That is still the question. How much, how fast, and how come? And that is our concern with agriculture. When I was asked to speak to the European Union and their annual ag meeting, they said, we would like you to speak on the vicious cycle. And who will break it? I said, I'll be glad to. What is it? The vicious cycle. That people are affected by climate, and people influence climate. People create agriculture, and agriculture also influences people. It influences people terrifically. Agriculture, the largest industry on the earth. Agriculture, the oldest industry on the earth. Agriculture, the most important industry on the earth. Agriculture, the only industry where the people that run it are happy to sell what they produce for the cost of producing it. All other businesses seem to want a profit. Agriculture operates, I guess, because they love people. They don't need a profit, but they have to support a world of cities. We love the cities, and they're not sustainable. Cities are not sustainable. They must have an agricultural base that they work with. yet the cities control the vote. And we need the political support. We need the people in the cities to understand what is best for our planet and best for the agriculture to achieve that. Because it is a cycle. Agriculture has influenced the climate. The climate, of course, will always influence agriculture. Population will always influence agriculture and control it because it's controlled by the vote. And agriculture will control the population. If it wasn't for agriculture, we'd have no culture at all. All other cultures are based on agriculture. So, one of the prime rules that we have to have on this planet is make agriculture a success. Keep the farmer in business. Keep the farmer educated, or help the farmer be educated if help is needed. Because the only way we've got to break that cycle right now, you've got to take off at least one of those arrows that goes the other way. And the one that we need to break is that the population no longer influences the climate. That's a logical one to break. And at least with agriculture, over to the right, we could operate agriculture such that it does not adversely affect the climate. Of course, it will always influence the climate. But breaking the vicious cycle, somewhere it has to be done. There's no question about that. It's been 52 years now since the advisors to the President of the United States came and said, we have absolute data that show that it is our human activity that is changing the composition of the atmosphere. The main composition that it is changing as far is carbon in the air. Secondary is contaminants from the atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons. And the President, within the week, called a special session of Congress and said, people of the legislature, do you want the United States of America to go down in history as the nation that changed the composition of the atmosphere and contaminated it with nuclear materials? Fix it. It's been a miracle. It's been a miracle in that immediately the Congress of the United States said, well, we know what is causing, from the science report, this carbon dioxide to go up. It's because we're burning fossils faster than the earth creates new ones. The only way to solve that is to not burn fossils faster than the earth creates new ones. We can conserve. If you will double the insulation in your walls and attic, you can deduct the cost from your taxes. So I doubled the insulation in my roof, and so did almost everyone. But let's have a vehicle that gets better miles per gallon. But still, we didn't get completely away, at least not even sufficiently close to being away from using fossils as a source of energy. And there's something about people. I got an extra $1,000. And my wife said, good, I need a new washing machine. And I thought about one of those little scrubbing boards. And that isn't what she had in mind. She had in mind to use energy to wash the clothing. That's a wonderful thing. The more wealth a nation has, increase the per capita income, and you'll increase the energy consumption. We'll spend the money on something that consumes energy. That's the way people operate. So we have to substitute a different kind of energy. We must get away from the fossils if we're going to move away from people influencing the environment. That means that I'll need a different kind of liquid fuel. Since transportation is one of the major energy consumers, and it wants, for the most part, liquid fuel. So we'll need to go to something else. Something that doesn't use any fossils. Biofuel. We used to operate on biofuel. My family was slow in coming to the modern world of agriculture. We still farmed with horses in 1950. It was 1952 when we got our little Ford tractors. Before that, it took 1/3 of our cultivated land to power our farm equipment. It was biopower. It was feeding those horses. And we understood what that took. We understand it still. The only answer we have to this changing climate right now is biofuel. There could be other answers, but that's the only one that has come forward so far. Biofuel. No fossils involved. That can be done. Oh, it isn't being done at the present time. The biofuel that we're using now, mostly ethanol, uses fossils to produce the nitrogen to fertilize the crop, but we don't have to. We can do the whole job without any fossils being involved. And it will take 1/3 of the cultivated land of our planet. Get more people, cultivate more land, remember 1/3 of it will be required, at least with common technology, if we want to correct this situation. It's been a miracle so far. Many countries are following the lead. Not everyone agrees that the United States has been a leader, but here's one lead. The people of the United States this year, per person, used less energy than per person in 1970. That is a goal for the world to work towards. Use less energy than you used per person per capita in 1970. That we set up as an international standard. The country that took a lot of criticism for not signing the agreement, and if it had just said move back to 1970 energy consumption, we'd have signed it because the United States had already achieved that. But that is a goal, and it is achievable. It's been done by at least one major nation. Agriculture enables climate change. With zero agriculture on Earth, we would not have sufficient population to worry about people causing climate change. Agriculture directly and greatly has impacted our changing climate. I remember my father saying when I was about 12 years old, "Son, it's really a shame we have to do these soil conservation things." And I said, "Dad, you're the president of the Soil Conservation Association in our county." And he said, "That's right. Do you know what conservation means?" "What does it mean, Dad?" "It means destroy our farm slowly. We shouldn't have to destroy it at all." I wish Dad was still alive to see that now we can produce 200 bushels the acre of maize and have the soil be better than it was before. No net release into the atmosphere of carbon or any of the other problems. It was growing plants that made those great soils that are so productive on the earth in the right proportion and in the right management that nature happened to provide. And we've learned to do the same thing. We can make them better. Agriculture is right now the only solution that we have available to us in hand. And we need to emphasize that. Agriculture directly impacts climate change. The albedo of the earth, how white it is, how much sunlight it reflects compared to how much it absorbs, is influenced by the cover of the earth. Is it bare soil? Is it trees? Is it flowers? Fossil energy used in agriculture, carbon sequestered in the soil, These are the things that are of concern. These are the answers to the changing, because of human hand, climate that we are facing. Let's talk about soil management. Soil carbon diminishes in disturbed soils. When we started plowing the great, deep, rich, and organic material soils, we turned loose a lot of carbon. Soil carbon increases in forest soils. We have a lot of emphasis on preserve the forests, increase them. Prairie soil, even better. Prairie soils, the finest soils on the earth. Whether it be in Italy or southern Argentina or the center of the United States or wherever the soils were developed by prairie, there we have the finest soils and the most efficient sequestering of carbon. Farming practice relies on fossil energy for both fertility and for the equipment, but it doesn't need to. 1940, production on a small farm using no energy other than is produced by that farm. Henry Ford did this. He said, I'll take 40 acres, plant potatoes to it, and then make all those potatoes into alcohol. Well, it cost a third of them to pay for the alcohol to be made. And then the farm operated the next 6 years with their light, with their heat, with their refrigeration, with the powering of their farm equipment from the revenue of the alcohol. We know just exactly what it takes to do the job. Soils can be built. The 1990s no-till agriculture can sequester soil carbon, and we can have high production without the consumption of any fossils. But I don't know anyone that's even suggested trying it. It takes so little because all of the technology exists. The answers are there. We have volatility in the world's crops from year to year, especially by location. Wheat is an important one. I see some slight improvement of Europe's wheat and of China's wheat yields. Not much change in the U.S. Diminishing in a lot of other places. People are concerned about that. Rice in many parts of the world diminishing in its yields. And people are saying, what are we doing to the soils? What's going wrong? It's the climate causing the diminishing in many, many cases. Probably the largest effect of climate change right now is the diminishing of the yield of grain, or plants that, when they grow, kind of imitate grains. I won't talk about the exports to the world of wheat, but half of it is the European Union, Canada, and the U.S., and by the rest of the world does the other half. Exporting and importing of these materials, and it's important to move food around. Remember, the cities can't maintain themselves. They have to be sustained by agriculture, and the grains are one of the most important, if not the most important thing. Using wheat as the example. Why the diminishing? We're not hurting our soils, says one farm area. We're not doing this, we're not doing that. It is the nighttime temperature that almost always shows up as the culprit in this. This is the major climate change right now influencing agriculture on the earth is nighttime temperatures. Plant development is temperature sensitive. Plants can develop day and night, and it is temperature much controlled. There is a difference between the words growth and development. Growth is the adding of dry weight. Development is germinating, flowering, producing seed. So we have development can happen day and night. But growth, adding dry weight for plants, only in the daytime. Night temperatures become very, very important. So the dry weight increase of a plant, mostly limited to the daytime. But crop yield, a function of both growth and development. Well, that is an important thing. Here is a graph of the production of maize in one location. It's got its ups and downs from year to year, and I just marked 4 of them in a row. I could have marked any 4. I chose these. The top left one, I see a lot of blue in the graph, which is deviation during the time of development of the maize kernel. Deviation of temperature from normal, and I see a lot of blue, cooler than usual. In this case, it would be July and August, from pollination to damped. That is near the time that the crop is done, adding dry weight to the grain. I'll look at the next one, which is much lower yield, and I see a significant amount of red, warmer than usual nights. I'll look at the next one, which is above the trend yield, again cooler than usual nights, and another one warmer. All of the surprises to the United States Department of Agriculture yield, all of the big surprises are because they don't consider the nighttime temperature in their estimates of yield. But the farmers do. Because the farmers have risk to be managed. That's the wonderful thing about risk. Risk has numbers. Risk can be managed. We have risk and we have uncertainty. Uncertainty has no numbers. All you can do is avoid uncertainty. You can't manage it. You can only avoid it. So, we'll try to study the uncertain things to make them risks. And once they're risks, they can be handled. Small changes, large impact. From the warm nights in the Philippines. 1 degree Celsius warmer than usual through the grain formation time cut the yield in the Philippines by 10%. And we've had several years that were 2 degrees warmer than usual at night. They were the cloudy years. It's the center thing we're looking at. The top little red lips that I put here is on the maximum temperature. There was a very warm year where I drew that little thing up there. And then come down to look at the red one below it, and the minimum temperatures were about normal. And that was an interesting thing. Look at another one. Look at the year that we had the lowest radiation and normal to cooler than usual daytime temperatures and the nighttime temperatures, the blue circle, way above usual because of the cloud cover. Cut the yield in that case by 30%, and that was the only factor. We understand this. And all we have to do is understand it, and we can keep agriculture in business, and that is the thing we need to do. Teach the farmers risk management. A farmer, in one of the handouts you have in front of you, said, well, I just need to know if it's going to rain or not. And it needs to be accurate. No, it doesn't. All it needs to be is, what is the chance it will and what is the chance it won't. Have it be a true chance, then the farmer can manage it. And our agriculture will not go out of business. And that is the thing that's essential to us on the planet. Warmer than normal nights may be the primary result of our increasing atmospheric modification. That's certainly the one that we're seeing, and the one I'm seeing almost nothing in the literature about. But it is the biggest factor. All of the things in the models, very few of them say, let's look at the nighttime temperature and do it based on science. Our basic food crops may be the primary adverse result of warmer nights. The only variable to date solution to increased carbon, remember, is agriculture. Right now, corn is the crop of choice. If we want to substitute biofuel for petroleum fuel. In 30 years, I doubt it will be. I think it'll be something that's more efficient at producing starch. I know of a couple of plants that are more efficient, and one of them grows in poorer parts of the world, cassava. It is more efficient than corn. I would think maybe 30 years from now, if indeed this has become the solution, there will be many of the poorest populations on earth now providing the fuel that we need on the earth, helping a great deal with the distribution of wealth. Pictures of cassava at the bottom. Climate is changing. Agriculture is impacted by climate. Agriculture impacts climate. Agriculture can reduce the energy use on climate. And agricultural interests can manage the climate risk to crop